The valley of Green Hollow was known for quiet days and golden fields. The wind moved slowly through the wheat, and the river beside the village sang a soft, endless song most. People in Green Hollow lived simple lives. Farmers woke with the sun, children ran through dusty roads, merchants shouted in the small market, but at the far edge of the village, near the forest road, stood a lonely house where happiness never lived in. That house lived an orc woman named Laura, was known across the village. For one reason, she was the most beautiful orc anyone had ever seen. Her skin was deep emerald green, like wet forest leaves. Her long dark hair flowed down her back like a river at night. Her eyes were warm, brown, and gentle even. Her tusks were small and elegant, but those eyes almost never smiled, because Laura had married a cruel orc named Brega. Brega was huge and brutal. He loved drinking and gambling more than anything, and whenever his luck turned bad, he returned home angry, and Laura paid the price every day. Shouting came from that house, sometimes the sound of breaking furniture, sometimes the sound of fists hitting walls, sometimes worse. The villagers heard it, but no one intervened. Fairy dogs were known for solving their own problems, so the village looked away day after day. Laura walked to the well quietly, with bruises hidden beneath her sleeves. Her steps were slow, her shoulders lowered. People whispered about her beauty, but they also whispered about her sadness. Then one morning, something changed. A new farmer arrived in Green Hollow. His name was Rowan. Rowan was not a warrior, he was not a noble. He was just a farmer, but there was something calm and steady about him. His hair was the color of golden wheat. His eyes were clear and thoughtful, and his hands were strong from years of honest work. He bought an old abandoned farm near the forest road. The villagers thought he was foolish. Wolves sometimes passed through those woods, but Rowan did not seem afraid of wolves. He had faced harder things in life. On his first morning, Rowan walked to the village well, carrying 2 wooden buckets. That was when he saw her. Laura stood beside the well, pulling up a bucket of water. Sunlight touched her green skin and dark hair. For a moment, Rowan simply watched, not because she was an orc, but because she looked so tired. When she lifted the water jar, Rowan noticed the dark bruise along her arm. He did not ask questions. Instead, he waited politely for his turn. After she filled her jar, Rowan noticed something else. The clay jar she carried had a long crack along its side. Water slowly leaked down the surface. That jar will break soon, Rowan said calmly. Laura looked at it with quiet frustration. I know, but jars cost coin. Rowan thought for a moment, then he spoke. Can fix it. Laura looked surprised. You can, Rowan nodded. I repair tools and wood on my farm. Resin and a wooden ring will hold the crack closed. She hesitated, then slowly handed him the jar. That small moment was the first step that changed everything. Later that afternoon, Rowan returned the jar. The crack had been sealed with hardened pine resin and a strong wooden brace knot. A single drop licked. Laura stared at it in disbelief. Thank you, she said quietly. Rowan simply smiled. You are welcome. From that day, the two often crossed paths, sometimes at the well, sometimes at the small market, sometimes along the dusty road near the farms. Rowan always treated her normally. He never stared at her bruises. He never asked painful questions. Instead, he offered small kindness, repaired her broken basket, sharpened her firewood axe, and once left a small bundle of vegetables at her door. Laura slowly began to speak more. She told him about wild berries in the forest, about birds that nested near the hills. Sometimes she even laughed softly, but the bruises never stopped appearing. Rowan noticed, and every time he saw them, something inside him grew heavier. One evening, as Rowan worked in his barn, he heard shouting from the distant house. Then a loud crash, then silence. Rowan stood Very still, his jaw tightened. But he stayed where he was for now days past. Then one stormy night, everything changed. Rain poured down like rivers from the sky, wind howled across the fields. Rowan was closing his barn doors when he saw someone stumbling along the road, a tall figure moving through the rain. It was Laura. She could barely stand. Blood mixed with rain on her forehead, ran toward her. Immediately, Laura. What happened? Her voice trembled. Brega lost money tonight, he said. I brought him bad luck. Knees collapsed. Rowan caught her before she fell into the mud. Come inside, he said gently. Inside the farmhouse. Rowan cleaned the cut on her head and wrapped it carefully. He gave her warm soup and dry blankets. Near the fire, Laura sat staring at the flames. I should go back, she whispered. Shook his head. No, you should rest if he finds me here, she said quietly. Rowan placed another log in the fire. Then he spoke firmly. Then he will find you under my roof, and that will be my problem. Laura stared at him with wide eyes. No one had ever defended her before. The first time in years she slept without fear. Morning sunlight entered through the window, but peace did not last. Long heavy footsteps approached the farmhouse. The door burst open. Brega stood there like a raging beast. There you are, he growled. Laura shrank back. Rowan stepped forward. Calmly, Brega pointed at Laura. My wife comes home. Rowan did not move. She will leave when she choose. Brega laughed angrily. You think a farmer can command an orc warrior? Rowan answered quietly. No, but I can protect someone who asked for help. Brega roared and charged. His fist flew toward Rowan, but Rowan moved quickly. He stepped aside and drove his shoulder into Brega's chest. The huge orc stumbled across the room. Furniture attacked again. The fight shook the small farmhouse. Brega was stronger, but Rowan was faster and smarter. When Brega lunged again, Rowan struck his knee with a wooden handle. The joint buckled. Brega fell hard onto the floor. Rowan stood over him, breathing heavily. Leave and never touch her again. Brega glared with burning hatred, but he could barely stand. At last he limped toward the door. This is not finished, he growled. Rowan replied calmly, it is for her. Brega disappeared into the morning fog. Silence filled the farmhouse. Laura stared at Rowan with shock. Rowan turned to her gently. You are free, you can stare, go anywhere you want. No one owns you. Tears filled Laura's eyes, not from pain, from hope. Weeks passed. Brega never returned. Laura began helping Rowan on the farm. She planted crops, repaired fences, and laughed beneath the summer sun. The bruises faded. Her smile returned. One evening they stood together on the hill above the farm, watching the golden fields. You changed my life, Laura said softly. Rowan shook his head. Nor you changed it yourself, only opened a door. The wind moved across the valley, and the wheat shimmered like gold. And for the first time in many years, the road near the forest carried no grisly peace, because sometimes destiny does not arrive through magic. Sometimes it arrives through a simple act of kindness. Repaired Jaren, opened door, and a farmer brave enough to say you deserve better.